Kelly here, and today I want to share with you my recent reads. I have 5 books to talk to you about today, and I'm going to start with the one I like the least to the one I like the best. And first I want to start off with Binti, the Night Masquerade by Nnedi Okorafor. This is the 3rd book in the Binti trilogy. These are all like shorter books, like the first 2 I think are only like 100 pages. This one's a little longer, it's about 200, but they're all novellas. And this trilogy is about a young woman named Binti. I think she's only around 17, so she's a teenager. And she is the first in her group of people who have been given the opportunity to leave and go to a university that's in outer space. And it's not really common for people to like leave their community. So it's a lot about what you define as home and identity and all of that. I really loved the first one. I just really enjoyed Binti and her adventures and things like that. The second one I didn't love as much. I mean, it was close, but it felt like a filler middle book because it was introducing a lot of stuff that would come in this one. So I didn't love it as much, but I still really love Binti. This one, oh, I was really disappointed in this book. It just felt like it was all over the place. I mean, I can't really talk about the plot because I don't want to spoil it because there is some big cliffhangers that happen along the way, big reveals. But in this one, it just seemed like she was trying to cram so much into the story, and that's why it's longer, but then it was getting really convoluted, and then even though there's a lot added, not everything really seemed concluded. I don't know. A lot of the themes that were introduced in the first 2 about family and identity and home and differences between people and races and things like that, all of that seemed to kind of not disappear in this one, but wasn't really like clearly talked about in this one. Like this one just seemed bogged down by everything happening at once. And also I just didn't really love Binti's voice in this one as much. In the first 2 I really loved Binti and the way she's interacting with the world, but in this one she seemed actually kind of whiny. Like she was complaining a lot and just really confused a lot, and I don't know. I was really disappointed. I ended up only giving this 2 stars, so it was a sad conclusion for me for the trilogy. Personally, I think if you want to give it a try, you can just read the first one as a standalone. Like it doesn't end, the first one does not end on a cliffhanger, but once you've read the second one you kind of have to do the conclusion because that one does kind of end with a cliffhanger. So I would at least give the first one a try, and then, you know, the first one I think is really great. The next book was an audiobook I listened to, and that was Daisy Jones and the Six by Jenkins Reid. And this one has a full cast audio, so everybody is narrated by a different person. The narrators are amazing. I thought they did a great job. This book is kind of interesting because it's an interview format. So this is about a fictional band in the 70s that was called The Six, and it talks about their origins and how the band gets together, and then how when it really reaches fame is when they bring in an artist, singer named Daisy Jones. And so we are learning about Daisy Jones, we're learning about the Six, and then we have them come together and talk about making their big album together, and kind of the turmoil that happened within the band, like between the different band members, the like drugs and addiction and things that some of the people were dealing with. So there is a lot of drugs, sex, cheating, all that kind of stuff that you might expect from a 70s music scene kind of book, in case that's not your thing. I really liked the format because to me it kind of felt like listening to a podcast, and I love podcasts that are like kind of about true life. And even though this is a fictional band, it felt like very true to how things would have been like on the music scene in the 70s. So I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. It wasn't quite 5-star caliber to me because I felt like the interview style, I couldn't really connect with all of the characters. There were some characters that really like touched me, and like I was tearing up at one point from some of the things that some of the characters were going through, but overall it didn't reach like my all-time favorite or anything, but I do think it was a solid read, and I really enjoy listening to it. It's one of those books that I think you kind of have to listen to it in order to make it what Jenkins Reid like kind of formulated it for. And the next 3 books are all 5-star reads. I just had a really good reading week, and I have some old favorites here that were rereads and a new favorite of mine. So let's talk about the rereads first. And first of all, I read Much Ado About Nothing by Shakespeare, and this is one of his comedy plays, and this is probably my favorite Shakespeare play. I know critically probably the tragedies are better stories, but I just love this play. And for me, you know, like it's just completely ridiculous, but that's kind of what makes me love it. For those of you that don't know, I don't like to go through the whole like plot of the play because Shakespeare's plays always have multiple plots going on at once, but this one is ultimately about love and trickery, I would say. So there are like two couples and there's a lot of like mistaken identity and people trying to trick other people and all that, and it's just a ridiculous fun romp, like, and probably has my favorite couple of all time in literature, and that's Beatrice and Benedict. They're like my ultimate hate to love couple. Just their banter in here is what all like writers should strive to create, this like balance of like mean but witty, and then even when they're like in love, they still have this witty banter amongst each other that is just amazing. I just love them. I love this play. If you are somebody that thinks that Shakespeare's too intimidating to read, I would suggest this as a starter because, you know, the tragedies can be a little more intense. This one is just kind of fun. So, and plus it's one of those that, you know, all Shakespeare plays usually will have like footnotes and things like that to kind of help you with the like language of the time. But I think with this one that you wouldn't even need footnotes. Like, it's just about topics that are easy enough to understand that you could read it pretty easily compared to some of the other plays. So I would suggest this as a good starter point. Also, a caveat that, like, I know a lot of people think that you need to read a book before you watch an adaptation of a book, but for me, these are plays, so any plays, I feel like it is perfectly fine to like watch the play before you read it because they are meant to be seen. So almost all the Shakespeare plays that I have read, I have watched first, either on stage or in a movie adaptation, and I think it enhances actually my experience of reading it because I can picture the action because they are meant to be seen. Like, that's how Shakespeare wrote them, and so you get a lot of that context that maybe the footnotes would give by watching it. So I think if you feel like you're struggling a little bit with Shakespeare, go out and watch an adaptation of one of the plays and then read it and see how you fare then. My next 5-star read was Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. Kind of self-explanatory. I'm not going to go on about this because I actually did an entire reading spoiler vlog about this, so if you are a Harry Potter fan and want to hear all of my thoughts, I will link that down below. I think it just was posted a few days ago, so you might have seen that come through. And I just like haven't read this in maybe 5 to 8 years, some amount of time in there that I haven't read it, so it was kind of me rediscovering it again, even though I'm very familiar with it because I have watched the movies and read the books and listened to the audiobooks several times over the years, and I still just love it. I think it's magical and fun. And I had gotten these signature edition versions when I was in Australia because I wanted the like British version, the Philosopher's Stone version, and I just think these are gorgeous and I love them. And my last 5-star book was a new book to me and a new author to me, which is A Heart and a Body in the World by Deb Caletti. And this is one of those books where you don't necessarily want to know a lot going in because the whole point is kind of follow along our main character as she is going through her emotions. But basically it's about a girl named Annabelle who is in her last year of high school, and at the beginning of the book she just starts running. It's like something happens, makes her start running away, and she's like, oh, I could just keep running, and she decides to do a cross-country run. And part of the reason is that something has happened in her recent past that is very tragic, and this is a way for her to kind of deal with her emotions and to move on from this tragic event. And there's more details we learn about it along the way. We don't find out about the event until the end, but there are like clues along the way and things. She does a lot of flashbacks while she's running, and I just really, when I heard about this book, I thought, how is a book about running, like somebody running, going to be that interesting? Because everybody I heard talk about it raved about it, so I just didn't understand it. But then as soon as I listened to it, I just really connected with this main character. And I read a lot of young adult books, and I like them. I like coming of age stories and things like that, but I don't necessarily connect with the main character since I am so much older. But this one, it really resonated with me. When she's running, she's thinking about so many things, not just flashbacks to the tragedy or things leading up to it, but also about what it's like to be a young woman, and actually a woman of any age in American society. This is one of those books that I would say that all young women should read, because there's just some stuff that comes up about the way women feel that I just thought was amazing and brought me to tears a few times, and just like feeling like these things that we don't necessarily talk about amongst ourselves as women, but having it laid out in the book just really hit me. And then, of course, when we found out about the tragic event, it turns out that that issue that it is about is something that I'm really passionate about, so that hit me hard. And I just thought this book was amazing. I would highly recommend it. I listened to it on audio, which I thought was great, because then it kind of feels like you're joining her on this run. And I also, like, a lot of these locations are real, at least they might all be real locations, but I looked up some of the locations, and it was fun to like see the pictures of some of these trails and places that she had been running through, so I could feel like I was along the ride with Annabelle. Those are all the books that I have read recently. If you would like to chat more about them down below, I would love to talk to you. Thanks, bye.